stands apart from the rest. Get ready to embrace the truth as we bring you the most hard-hitting stories and unveil the real facts. Welcome to Hard Facts.
I am Maryann Okon, and this is Hard Facts, where we separate truth from fiction. We're passionate about the hard-hitting stories that matter. Get ready to challenge your perception and discover the real world. Let's dive deep into the issues that affect our communities, revealing the untold stories and giving you a voice. No sensationalism, no bias, just raw, unadulterated truth. I am committed to delivering news without compromise. Hard facts as we know them, when we know them, and how they affect you. Every Monday through to Friday, 3 to 6 p.m. This will be your most authentic news experience starting now on 99.3 Nigeria Info. Let's talk. 7 minutes come past the 3 o'clock hour, welcoming you to the nation's #1 talk news and sports radio station. We're broadcasting live from our audiovisual studios right here in Itimian Crescent, Victoria Island, Lagos. This is Hard Facts, and I'm Maryann Okon. Welcome, Lagos. Welcome, Nigeria. And if you're watching us, we're live on facebook.com/Nigeria Info FM. We're also live on YouTube, Nigeria Info FM. Join the conversation. If you're listening from outside of the country via our mobile application, we're on Skype at Nigeria Info FM. Today, the show's going to take a different turn, obviously, because we have just an hour. It's an abridged version of the Hard Facts today because I beg to differ. The third place competition is going to take place from 4 p.m., so you don't want to miss that. But my guest is joining me live right now via Zoom. He is a former governorship candidate in the previous elections. That's the 2023 general elections. And he's joining me this afternoon because we want to talk about the state of the nation generally and all that's been happening, especially economic woes. He's one who's never really held back when it comes to speaking truth to power. He is Funso Doherty. He's joining us now live via Zoom. Mr. Doherty, so good to have you join us on Hard Facts. Good afternoon.
Hi, Maryann. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Great. Congratulations can be in order because I hear you're now with the People's Democratic Party. Well done.
Yes, indeed. I did join the PDP a few weeks ago.
Okay, great.
So very excited about that.
Okay, great. We'll get to talk about that. But let's start with, of course, you obviously live in Lagos. You live in Nigeria. You're seeing all that's been happening right from the day that Mr. President told us that subsidy was gone. Things began to take a turn, maybe not necessarily for the best. And right now, I'm sure that you have your driver somewhere queuing and waiting to buy petrol for your vehicles. That's if you're not driving a CNG vehicle. The list is endless. But let's start by looking at that decision that the president made. I know many people have asked you this question over and over again. Do you think it was the best way to go? There are those of us who somewhat might think that, the removal of subsidy had to happen, but did we go about it the right way? That's the bigger question. Let's start with that.
So thank you. And again, this is a question that comes up repeatedly, right? I think that most people agree that the removal of the subsidy was ultimately or is ultimately inevitable. I think politically, even all the three main political parties agreed on that fact ahead of the election. I think what is most troublesome for most people is the way in which this was done. And the implementation of it has left a lot to be desired. And ultimately, the effect of that is that despite tremendous pain that people have gone through in the 15 months or so since that announcement was made, or 12, well, I guess it must be about
a year plus
now. Yeah, since that announcement was made. Despite the tremendous pain that people have gone through, we are pretty much back exactly where we were when the announcement was made, if not worse off. Because today, even a blind man can see, that subsidy is still being paid at the current pump price. And the numbers are being reported, they are astronomical figures. So this speaks to weak implementation. And it's related to a couple of other things, such as the way in which the foreign exchange policy was also implemented. But, we can talk about that more.
Most importantly, a lot of people were also curious as to who would have made up Mr. President's economic team. Whether it's the Wale Dunes of this world or Yemi Cardoso, and of course every other person that the president has put in that team, whether it's Tony Elumelu and the Dangotes. And the way it was presented seemed to us that these guys had what it took, or maybe had the magic wand of sorts to, steer this ship called Nigeria to a certain, maybe not Uhuru, but a place where one would be comfortable. And so far, that's not necessarily been the case. Could there have been better square pegs in square holes?
I mean, it's always a debatable point. I'm sure if you point to individual people within the cabinet, you may be able to point to, one or two or a few people who in their individual capacity may be viewed as being technically competent. Mm-hmm. However, a government is a lot more than that. A government is made up of many parts, different arms in the first place, and then even within each arm, there are many parts, particularly within the executive. Mm. And so I would say personally, from day one, I was not inspired by the cabinet that was chosen by Mr. President. Mm-hmm. And I think, you need the various parts to work in a well-choreographed way with a common goal and putting self-interest aside. Mm. And I think that this has always been a challenge for us. Mm. It is particularly important when you're dealing with a situation which is very difficult. I mean, nobody will argue that, the president came into a difficult situation. Having said that, we must also say that, he was elected as an APC president, on the heels of an APC government. So on another level, we have to ask the question around that. And he did have enough time to prepare for stepping into that role. So I think that at the end of the day, the buck stops at the president's table. He selects his team, and he has to take responsibility for his team, as any senior leader must in any organization that you run. And ultimately, I think that the performance of the team leaves a lot collectively, I think, to be desired, even though they are faced with very difficult circumstances. I will also add, Maryann, that two things I would add. First is that part of what makes a team strong is your ability to surround yourself with people who have the capacity and who have the gravitas, to challenge you when they have a different view and to bring their views to the table. And that way you have a leadership team that is robust. Yes, the final decision rests with you, but you need people to be able to speak up and not be afraid of speaking up and have that confidence and gravitas to make that view known. So that is one area that I'm not very confident about in this administration. The other is the different arms of government which are supposed to act as checks and balances on one another. So it's not just the executive. So you need the legislature to be up and doing, as a counterbalancing arm of government. We say separate but co-equal, right? Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So if you have a legislature that is beholden to the executive, or that is, acting, for want of a better word, more as a rubber stamp to the executive, you're going to have a weak government and you're going to have weak outcomes. Of course, it only matters that these two cannot resolve or fall outside of the ambit of these two that end up in the judiciary. So that's another, okay. But these are the 2 points that I would make. In other words, capacity, strength, and robustness within the government itself. And then between the three arms of government, the ability of each arm to sort of play its role and stand its ground as a co-equal arm of government.
So let me directly ask you, do you think that this National Assembly, this legislature that we have, is able to check the executive, let alone talk about, the judiciary, especially with Senator Akpabio at the helm of affairs?
I personally, I don't think so. That's my personal view. Others may have different views, but that is my personal view. I think that this may be, in terms of that particular measure, this may be one of the weakest legislatures that we've had, right? The ability to stand and be a co-equal arm of government, serve as a check and balance, and put the primary interests of the people first. Remember that the legislature, more than any arm of government, is the arm of government that represents the people, because they're elected from the length and breadth, far and wide. They represent small communities, larger communities in the case of Senate, but small communities in the case of the House of Rep. I mean, these are people who are going to Abuja to represent, Kotangora, Kafanchan, Abijo in Lagos, you know what I mean? So these guys are there, and there's a lot riding on their carrying that mandate, with integrity and with the sanctity of the public trust. And I think that of the two principal functions of legislative officers, which is, lawmaking on the one hand and representation of the people on the other, I think there's something to be desired on the part of both, but I think more so on the part of representing the people.
But Mr. Doherty, this didn't start today. I mean, really, can you truthfully say that we've necessarily had a legislature that's necessarily reflected the need of the average Nigerian? And I'm not just talking about today. I'm saying from 1999. Maybe there might be a little bit of, there might be some aspects that, somewhat seem like they cared about the people. But have we really had any serious antecedents, or rather precedents of legislators who were people oriented?
Well, I would say that, it's, you can argue that, it's always been, just as you can argue that leadership has always been a challenge in Nigeria. It's not just true of legislature, it's true of the executive and so on. But I think a lot rests on leadership, right? And leadership in their individual capacity. So whether the Senate president, whether the Speaker of the House of Representatives, and also beyond their individual stance, beyond the individual stance of each of these officers, there's also the dynamic of the government. So, for example, some people look at a situation where you have, leaders of the House or the Senate who are standing up to the executive as a negative thing because, it makes things more difficult to go through and all that. But it also serves as a check and a balance, right? So one of the times when we had this weight issue balancing was when we had Bukola Saraki in the Senate, right? Because if you remember, there was that balance of power that then existed between the executive and the legislature. Now it can go too far, right? Where you have gridlock. But so there's a balance to be struck. But I think that the balance today is far too much in favor, of essentially rubber stamping the things that the executive brings.
In case you're just joining us, the program is Hard Facts, and a brief version. We still have joining us live via Zoom, Funso Doherty. He is a former governorship candidate in the past elections, and we're talking about the economic woes of Nigeria. Is there an end in sight, and are there things that can be done, obviously, to somewhat reduce the pain and the sufferings of the average Nigerian today? Mr. Doherty, quickly before we go on a break, I have just 3 minutes on the clock. Let's quickly look at the economy in general. Our mainstay is oil. And this has been for the longest time. We've heard governments come and go, pay lip service to, divesting the economy. We hear it all the time, but every day, governors go cap in hand to the federal government to receive oil monies again that they bring back to the state. And so the states somewhat continuously are toddlers being baby fed by the federal government. So the viability of these states also is in question. And then, of course, we look at the NNPC that has declared a state of emergency of sorts, saying that, the oil and gas sector needs to be improved, blah, blah, blah. But we never really see anything happen. The name of the company has been changed. It's been baptized over and over again, window dressed, but nothing really seems to come out of it. What exactly has to give for us to begin to look into other aspects of the economy other than the oil and gas, even though it is still our mainstay?
So, we're in this chicken and egg situation where, we want to diversify the economy, but our area of strength is oil. And basically, what will enable us to make that transition quickly is the efficient use of the oil resources to accomplish this larger objective of diversifying the economy. And that's the quagmire that we've been in, as a nation. Mm-hmm. And so my own view has always been that the solution is to diversify the economy, but we must get the oil and gas right. Because if not, we will struggle for a long time, for a very long time. It's almost like somebody who has a car going to, Ikeja from Ekpe and who decides to walk. You may get there, but it will take you a much longer time, right? If you use the car which you have, get there much quicker. So I would say that, first of all, let me take the oil and gas, because I think that this is an area where one of the things that we've lacked, I would highlight two things. One is we have not had integrated policies, that are diligently implemented that make sense to move the industry collectively forward. That's one. Two is, and I'll explain what I mean by that. And two is the NNPC itself has been a big problem, right? The NNPC is a government agency masquerading as a non-government agency, but it has all the inefficiencies. It has tremendous resources, limited transparency over the years, and has basically not been a good trustee and manager of the resources that have been entrusted to it. Had it been a good trustee, right, it could have done a lot more with the resources that have passed through that entity over the years, and we could be in a very different place. Now, more importantly, given where we are today, I think that you just have to, sometimes you have to reduce things to their basic, to their simplest terms. So if you look at where we are today, we're an oil producer, one of the most significant oil producers in the world. We've dropped in significance, but we are still significant. Now, we are importing refined products. Thirdly, we have in country today refining resources. Some talk about modular refineries. We have Dangote's refinery, which supposedly is the largest single-train refinery, we are told, maybe in the world. Now, you can argue about how did we get it, who owns it, who should own it, and so on and so forth. But those are questions of detail.
I really beg you to just hold that thought. We need to go on a quick break. When we come back, we will talk more about the NNPC and the oil and gas sector. It's still Hard Facts, 99.3 Nigeria Info. We're live on YouTube. We're live on Facebook. Join the conversation. We'll be right back after these messages.
Experience hospitality. Hotel Expo Nigeria is back for the 5th time this August. Enjoy huge discounts on premium hotels and flight tickets. Connect with business leaders and innovators and learn from our conferences as you discover the latest trends. Experience service and product suppliers, technology and more as you buy, taste, learn and network on the show floor. It's Hotel Expo Nigeria holding at Landmark Event Center, Lagos on August 28 and 29, 2024. Doors open from 10 a.m. This Expo, networking and conference event is open to all. Register to attend for free at www.hotelexponigeria.com. Brought to you by Airpeace, Budweiser, Stays Connect, Burger King, The Belvedere, Escapade App, Landmark Africa Group, and we print, package and promote. Media partner, Cool Wazobia Nigeria Info FM.
We have gotten to a crossroads on Nigeria Info's I Beg to Differ National Tournament of Champions, and one winner must emerge. Nigeria, meet your finalists. Mary Uke Ashia and Oluwalade Demilade will go head-to-head, toe-to-toe on Thursday, beginning at 3 p.m. Their first topic will be, should developed nations increase financial aid to developing countries? And at 4 p.m., they will debate the topic, is global media coverage of the Israel-Gaza conflict biased? I am Yvonne Ohaifo. Join Femi Obong-Daniels and me as we meet Nigeria Info's I Beg to Differ National Champion of Champions on Thursday. I Beg to Differ Tournament of Champions. 16 debaters, now 2, 1 winner, 2 million naira. Sponsored by Lesheho Microfinance Bank, supported by Chrisland Schools, Olaiya Foods, Obiwizi, Call to Fly, Biloxi, and Massey Street Children's Hospital. For sponsorship and partnership, send an email to info@nigeriainfo.fm. I Beg to Differ, a tournament of champions.
Hey Lagos, have you heard of the gathering of diction coaches, educators, consultants, and communication enthusiasts? Well, if you don't know what I'm talking about, it's the 2024 edition of the Association of Diction Coaches of Nigeria, ADCN's National Conference. The theme of the conference is Elocution in the Digital Age, adapting traditional speech training methods for modern communication platforms. The ADCN conference will feature keynote speeches, panel sessions, and networking among like minds. The rich lineup of speakers include award-winning presenter, radio and TV host Frank Edor, communication professionals such as Dr. Catherine Onyejiaka, Femi Obong-Daniels, Omotunde Adebowale David Lolowon, Bibi George, Ayonfe Oluwawole Ojo, Titus Bankole, personal brand champion Omotoyosi Ajayi, and renowned educationists such as Dr. Wasiu Adumadei, President Emeritus NAPPS, and Mrs. Ayola Akinyeye, Director of Schools, Chrisland Schools Limited. Date, August 31st, 2024. Time, 10 a.m. Dinner, 5 p.m. Venue, Chrisland School, Lekki, located at 12 Olubumi Owa, off Admiralty Road, Lekki Phase 1, Lagos. It's a free-to-attend event, but registration is necessary. So, to register, visit bit.ly/ADCN National Conference. That is bit.ly/ADCN National Conference. For more information, inquiries, partnership, and sponsorship, you can call the numbers 0812-626-2814. That is 0812-626-2814 or 0803-838-0173. 0803-838-0173. The conference will be streamed online, so you can join via ADCN's social media handles on Facebook, Association of Diction Coaches of Nigeria, or you can follow on Instagram at diction_coaches_of_Nigeria for more details. The 2024 ADCN National Conference is proudly supported by P1 Max, the British Council, Chrisland Schools Limited, MTN, and 99.3 Nigeria Info.
News, updates, and the best of talk.
Women have to work twice, even thrice as hard for them to get things that just come so naturally to a lot of men who feel that leadership is their right.
We're in prisons for how many years?
For 6 years, 8 months.
Were you going to court from prisons then?
Yes, but before I started court, it took me 2 years.
Just being in prison?
Yes.
Without your case even start at all?
Confinement.
You were there?
Yeah.
Here on your number one station for talk, 99.3 Nigeria Info. Let's talk.
Millions of listeners trust us on Hard Fact. Whether it's politics, social issues, controversies, and trending stories, you know we're credible and objective.
It's Hard Facts with Maryann Okon on 99.3 Nigeria Info.
Yes, we're back. The program is Hard Facts. My name is Maryann Okon, and this is the nation's number one talk news and sports radio station. And we are live, facebook.com/Nigeria Info FM. We're also live on YouTube, Nigeria Info FM. Now, you can join the conversation, obviously. You can send us a message on WhatsApp. It's 080-959-75805. That's 080-959-75805. 805. The phone lines will be open in a bit. On Skype, you can join us. We're Nigeria Info FM. But post your comments on our live feed if you're just joining us. The guest that is discussing Nigeria's economy with us is a former governorship candidate in the last elections, Funso Doherty. And he's been talking to us, obviously, about several issues concerning the economy. Just before we went on that break, Mr. Doherty, we were talking about the NNPC and why it's troubling that it is also the problem, one of the biggest problems that the economy is facing.
Yes. And, I've gone beyond that to say that, look, at the end of the day, we have to reduce this problem to its basics. We're an oil-producing country. We are importing, one of the largest importers of refined products, which doesn't make sense. We have a refinery today, which we're told is one of the largest single-train refineries in the world. And we can argue about who owns it, how did they get to own it, why do they own it, and so on. Those are questions of detail. But as someone who is governing this entire process, what we need to do is bring everything together and say, look, we cannot have these different building blocks and then still be operating the way we are. Importing refined products, oil is being stolen, the refinery is there, it's empty, it's not working. it doesn't make sense. We can bring it all together, right? And get everybody into a room if we have to, including the IOCs, including NNPC, including the private sector players, and then figure out how to, because at the end of the day, the way we're operating it presently, we are essentially exporting jobs. Those jobs exist elsewhere. That value added is elsewhere, and it could be here. And this is how countries make the transition. So that strengthens the oil and gas industry. And then you can then move from there to talk about diversification. And there are a few things I can talk about there, and we can get into them if you want me to.
Yes, please, because as we speak, there was a report from the Guardian newspaper, if I'm not mistaken, talking about the fact that about 31.8 million Nigerians face acute hunger as food prices rise by 262.98%. We might look at 31 million Nigerians as not many, but of course, I'm sure that if we count 31 million people, there are lots of people who are actually facing hunger.
People.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
So if we're not, especially the fact that also we're facing food insecurity with farmers unable to go to their farms, insecurity not being a front burner issue as it should be. Really, let's talk about divesting the economy. How do we even go about it with all these issues that we're having to deal with?
Yeah, you see, a lot of these issues, they are real issues today, but they are not necessarily root cause issues, right? So sometimes they're like symptoms, right? So insecurity, a lot of the time, is a function of the socioeconomic conditions, poverty, the fact that people don't have options, and so on and so forth. Lack of education and so on. And at the end of the day, we will not get to a sustainable solution to these problems until we develop our economy and we are able to grow the economy in a broad base, not just talking GDP, but in having people able to enjoy something that goes over time. That's the economic decision. Becoming a control. One of the things that we will have to do, we cannot avoid doing. Obviously, leadership is critical, and we have lacked leadership of a quality that can essentially make this happen. Otherwise, it would have happened. It's not as if we didn't have the building blocks, right? But in addition, there are a number of things we have to do. The people themselves, we have to invest in the people, right? Because at the end of the day, to have broad-based growth, it is the people that will drive it, right? You cannot operate an extractive model and have broad-based growth. It has to be an inclusive model. What does it mean to invest in the people? You have to think about your educational policies and think about it broadly, not just in terms of giving people book knowledge, right? People go to and get school certs, some go to university, and so that's good. But you also need broad-based education, skills building, technical schools. We need far more technical schools than we have today. And this is true all over the country. It's particularly true in Lagos, right? Because these are the things that can empower people to start earning. They're educated, they have skills, and they can start earning, right? And by the way, skilled technical people are attractive to global companies. There are countries that have built their global competitiveness on the basis of the technical education that they've given to their populations, because then it becomes attractive to people to start businesses there, right? So this is one important area. How else do you invest in your people? Health, right? Primary health. We're not talking about highfalutin, very highbrow things. Primary health, just ensuring that you bring down infant mortality, maternal mortality. Water and access to water is a huge part of health. If you can just ensure that people have access to decent, portable, clean water, you solve a lot of health problems. And this is not just a problem of the rural areas, by the way. In Lagos, as you may know, we don't have pipe-borne water across the state. And this is Lagos that we all, sort of hail as, the leading.
I'm going to circle back to Lagos, because I know that this is a place that you're interested in. I'll circle back, but let's.
Yeah. So these are some of the things that say when you have to invest in the people. Now, when you've done that, there are a couple of other things that are important. Rule of law, and dealing with corruption. There's no country that has made the transition successfully, sustainably, from third world to first world that has not dealt with the problem of corruption. And if you look globally, the countries that have the highest per capita incomes correlate with those countries that have low scores on the indexes of corruption. So we have to deal with that, and you have to deal with it decisively. And I don't buy, by the way, this idea that corruption is a part of us, we can't get rid of it. No. I think at the end of the day, the leader has a lot, and the leaders have a lot to do. And what they say, that things rot from the top, right? So I think that the leader has a big say in whether you're going to be decisive in dealing with that. Now, if you deal with that, it also addresses another problem which we have, which is the fiscal indiscipline, because corruption and fiscal indiscipline go hand in hand. If you don't have rule of law and you have corruption, resources will get into the wrong hands. And those resources that get into the wrong hands, what are they going to do with it? They're not going to establish productive business with them. They're going to go to for example, the foreign exchange market and try and buy dollars to take that money out. So you will not be able to, all these things work together, right? And so it affects your fiscal balance. Right? Then, finally, you have to have a stable monetary environment. If you don't have a stable monetary environment, people will not feel confident to come and invest. If you have a currency that devalues 100% every year or what have you, people don't feel confident investing in those kinds of economies. And if you achieve monetary stability, fiscal discipline, you'll be amazed at what the private sector on its own will do just in pursuit of the profit motive. Because remember, Nigeria, people all over the world have come to invest in Nigeria for centuries, realizing the size of this market in terms of the people and so on. Now, if we don't harness those people well, then it becomes, like a wasted asset, and they will go away. But if we manage them well, they will continue to invest because they will continue to do well in this economy.
Lovely. Let's circle back now to Lagos. In fact, let's talk about states first, then we'll come to Lagos. Let me start with the End Bad Governance protest that we saw, or the hunger protests, as some people would call it. Several states, governors seem to say that, look, the federal government was pushing the heat to them, as opposed to the fact that it was their policies that were causing the problems that they had to deal with. But then, of course, also as Nigerians, we sometimes overlook our governors and always put everything at the feet of Mr. President. And so these governors fly under the radar, doing absolutely nothing and banking on that his point is the governor. Now, I remember some time ago you made actually raised some concerns, something Lake State. I remember have the issue solved, because I remember governor spot.
Governor responded to some issues that we raised. Some of them were non-responsive as far as we were concerned. Others were explanations. Others were excuses. But I think at the end of the day, what we took away as a win from that whole exercise was that it made the government sit up. They had to come out and explain. And then other people, followed suit and were raising other things in other states and so on. And so, that whole process of awareness building, of holding people accountable, of making people understand that, look, somebody's watching. They're not alone, in a stadium, right? So it makes them behave differently. I mean, even the governor was on TV talking about it and so on and so forth, which, really you don't see, it's not something that you typically would see, right? So that was good in that sense. But, look, at the end of the day, we're in a federation. And many quarrel with whether we are operating a federation as a true federation and so on and so forth. But the truth of the matter is that we have states. The Constitution does delineate certain powers for the states and certain powers for the federal government. If you don't stand up for the powers that the Constitution gives you, nobody will stand up for it for you, if you see what I mean. Now, a lot of the time, what people are complaining about today, when fingers are pointed to the federal government, is by way of excuse, because the things that were happening, when they were happening, and the states could have made a noise about them. How many states made a noise about them, right? So when the federation was borrowing ways and means, in the tens of trillions, printing money and so on, how many governors? You can point to one or two, and we all know who they were, who spoke up at that time, right? The reality of it is that if people don't take that responsibility of public trust seriously, because we are elected as a governor, what are you being elected as? The people are electing you as their de facto leader, the de facto CEO of their state. Not just that, they are also electing you as the person who represents their state in the federation, right? It's not always that the actions of the federal government will be in your interest as a state. And one of the things that is your job as the person who is running a state is, if the federal government is going in a direction that it does not have the authority to, or that it is inimical to the interests of your people, is contrary to the foundations and the ethos of the federation and the federating principles, it is your responsibility as the representative of the people in the state to call the federal government, right? And we have not had enough of that. I would just say in conclusion that this is another area where I think that, we have a big challenge, I think, in Lagos, right? Because this notion of, independence from the federal government, ability to stand your ground on the part of your people where necessary, is very challenged, as you can imagine, in the present structure, federal structure of government.
Because of time, I'm going to open up the phone lines, because I've seen a lot of questions that people are already sending to me, asking about a few things. Lagos, the phone lines are open. 0201 277 0993. That's for the gentlemen. 0201 277 0993. If you're a lady, call 0201 465 7190. Ladies only, 0201 465 7190. Quickly, I just want to ask you if you could answer this in 2 minutes. The Lagos-Calabar Coastal Road Project. I know that you're very concerned about it. In fact, I'd like to ask why you're suing the BPP, in relation to that project. I presume that you're one of those who've kicked against this project. So I'll give you 2 minutes to answer, and then I'll allow Lagosians to join the conversation.
Look, my beef with the project is very simple. It's very simple. It has nothing to do with the underlying merits of the road or not the road. It has more to do with the process that was undertaken and what it means for the future of this country. It has a lot to do with the things that we've been talking about, the rule of law. These are the things that ultimately determine whether your country progresses over time or not. So it's not about the road today or tomorrow. It is about the fact that a contract of over 10 trillion was awarded without competitive bidding to an entity that is known to be affiliated with the chief executive of the country. That is in violation of laws that we have in this country, namely the public procurement law. And so when we say we are going to court to challenge it, we're just saying, these are the facts, this is the law, this thing is unlawful,
okay,
and it needs to be undone.
Okay.
Right? And at the end of the day, when you award something for over 10 trillion and you just give it to one person without competitive, how do you know that you are getting value? How do you know? I would not do it for a business that I run. Nigeria Info, I'm sure, does not do it for its suppliers. Nigeria should not do it. The second point on which action is founded is the fact that till today, I have not seen, nobody has seen, and no, you have not seen an environmental impact assessment for that project. This is a project which is on the coastline of Lagos. Lagos is a low-lying coastal city. We deal with flooding all the time. It is unconscionable that you proceed with a project like this without environmental impact assessment. People are losing lives and property because of floods. That's why there's a law that says you must have an EIA and it must be published and people must see it and see what the impact is and what mitigating measures you are taking. And the government flouted that law. Government cannot act unlawfully.
Okay. Well, let's bring Lagosians into the conversation because they've been itching. Well, Lagos, you have 60 seconds. Go straight to the point, ask your question, and tell me your name, where you're calling from. Hello. Welcome to Hard Facts.
Maryann, good evening.
Good evening. What's your name, sir? Where are you calling from?
And I greet Mr. Doherty from my heart. So well done. I want to let Mr. Doherty to know that what the zenith and the utmost cause of insecurity, food insecurity, is insecurity. He should hit the nail on the head. I have many Benue and the Kaduna people that they picking nylon and the cattle water that left their farm, coupled with the Sospiro that is a scarf that they need to buy play. So they are asking me to tell the people, why would I return us back to May 28th last year? Nigerians are dying for hunger. It is the insecurity that is causing food insecurity. There are people who remember.
All right. Thank you very much for calling. 0201-277-0993 for the men. For the ladies, 0201-465-7190. 60 seconds is all you have.
Hello, Maryann.
Good evening. What's your name, sir? Where are you calling from?
This is Tunde calling from Mitiwe.
Go ahead, Tunde.
Good evening to your guest. I've been listening to your conversation, but your guest not touching the area of electricity concerning the skill that we were just talking about. So I'm one of the people that attend the the Lagos State, but the electricity is one of the key things that will make an impact of the skill that to be going of economy. And thank you and God bless you.
Thank you very much for calling. And that's a very interesting point he's made, Mr. Doherty. Whether we like it or not, Mr. Adelabu has not necessarily addressed some of the teething problems in the electricity or the power sector. I mean, I've not had light since yesterday and all my food in my fridge, everything has stored. And really, how do you power an economy when you don't have energy?
Yeah, it's a very good point. And the power sector is one where, there are a number of things that are needed, right? And the solution is not going to come from the federal government alone. The states also have to take shoulder some of the burden of ensuring that there's power capacity within their states. One of the points that I will make is that I feel that there are some structural issues that need to be addressed within the industry. Some of those distribution companies are operating as monopolies. And anytime you have a monopoly, you have to be careful. And we have to ensure that, of course, the laws have now been passed that, you can now have other entities within the states. But for a long time, and it was going to take a long time before people will feel confident to invest. Part of the problem is that they keep talking about cost-reflective tariffs. You see, if you have somebody who has something that looks like a monopoly, then you give him the ability to charge different people different amounts for the same power. vastly different amounts, by the way. So some people are paying 220, some people are paying, maybe 40 or something for the same power. What you're going to have is a situation where, and you allow them to recover their costs using this argument of cost-reflective tariffs. Nobody operates a business on the basis of cost-reflective tariffs. Do you understand? Cost-reflective is like saying that whatever my cost is as a business, my customer must pay it. If I'm inefficient as a business, I shouldn't expect to be profitable. I can't transfer that burden onto my customer. You see the point? But if I'm a monopoly, I will do that even if I'm inefficient. So what I think needs to happen is that and by the way, this goes back to the way in which those entities were privatized and who bought those entities when they were privatized. If you go and check very well, you will see that there was some self-interest among the leadership at that time, acquiring interest in these entities that bought the discos within their states.
Okay.
You see the point?
Because of time, because I have 5 minutes,
minutes.
what needs to be done? I mean, because I'm thinking that if we must fix this sector, then there has to be a solution. And I don't think that solution is far-fetched. Do you have an idea in one sentence what needs to be done?
I think essentially the states need to create, both the federal government and the states need to create the conditions that make it attractive for power stations with distribution infrastructure. And then also the transmission needs to be fixed. Because remember now that we have only one essential transmission entity right in the middle of everything, which is a quasi-government entity. So that also needs to be addressed because there's an inefficiency associated with that.
Absolutely.
And if you do that, then you allow states that have the viability and have an interest and are well governed to create the conditions for people to invest in power plants and you allow them to recover their costs. I think we'll fix that problem.
Okay. Hello, welcome to Hard Facts.
Hi, Maryann.
Yes.
Okay, Laprushku is my name.
Go ahead.
I greet your guest, Mr. Funso. I greet you, sir. Okay.
Oh, yes, sir.
He's all right. Okay. You said you joined the PDP recently, within 2 weeks.
Yes.
Now, although you say, Maryann say you are a governorship candidate, but no party was mentioned. Okay. Now, if you elected the governor, under PDP, please, I want to know what is just one thing you will do to eradicate, alleviate the suffering of the people, at least to help reduce hunger in the land and bring down inflation, say to say.
All right, thank you very much for calling. Mr. Doherty.
Let me give you two. There are very many, but let me give you two. One is water. I think water is a big problem in Lagos. It contributes to the issues that people have and contributes to health issues that people have. We have a lot of maternal mortality, a lot of childhood mortality. Lagos should have pipe-borne water. We don't have it. So water is a big problem to be addressed. The other problem is, I've mentioned it before, we need to expand our technical schools and ensure that we are giving people the skills and the ability to go out and earn incomes and support their families and have jobs and make it attractive for businesses who are looking for technically competent people to come and operate within Lagos and create the wealth. Overall, a government that I run, we are given the opportunity to run the government. We founded primarily on an inclusive model of governance rather than an extractive model of governance. What we have had for 25 years is an extractive model of governance that concentrates wealth in the hands of a few. Our philosophy is different. We will give people the skills and the capacity to grow their own incomes, and they will now be the engines that will drive the prosperity of the society, and they will share in it naturally as a result.
I want to quickly ask you a question. My time is totally gone, so hopefully you can answer it in a minute. My colleague talked extensively about it this morning. The fact that you can't carry anything. You can't move your, let's say you're moving houses. You can't pass anywhere without being extorted. The level of extortion in Lagos, will it ever end? Can we conquer it? Because it looks like it's come to stay. Whether you're governor or not, what is the solution, or are we really enslaved to these extortionists?
So let me. So this one is quite simple. I think that basically, the reason what you have to understand is that the reason why that stuff persists is because, in the way in which it does, is because those people are part of the power structure of the state. They are used by the those who are running the state as it's part of their power structure. They use them during political season. They are part of their institutional structure. So they are beholden to them.
So are you saying that the Lagos state government actually empowers these people to extort Lagosians?
At a minimum, they turn a blind eye, because these are the same people. These are the same people who form part of the structure that they rely upon to maintain their hold of government. And I'm saying that, look, the solution to this is if you need a government that does not rely on those as the primary means of coming in and sustaining power. And that government, when it comes in, can find a way of employing those people in more productive ways within the society. It ties into what I talked about, technical education. I can talk about many other things, but there are integrated policies that you can bring about. But you can only bring it about if those things you are trying to get rid of are not part of your institutional power structure.
Interesting. Well, we've been talking with Funso Doherty. He is a former governorship candidate and now a member of the People's Democratic Party. Are you running for governorship again in 2027? Is that why you've joined the PDP?
Well, only God knows the future, but there is no reason.
That is the most political response ever.
I see no reason why I would not continue in the quest to bring good governance to the people of Lagos, because I believe I have the capacity, I have the character, and I have the interest of the people at heart. And if people will give me their mandate, I will certainly discharge it.
All right.
With integrity and with trust.
Well, I want to say thank you, Funso Doherty, for joining us on the show today. Hopefully we can bring you back again sometime in the future. And good luck on your political endeavors. Thank you so much for joining us.
Maryann, thank you very much. Have a wonderful evening.
You too. Well, Lagos, there you have it. Funso Doherty, who is a former governorship candidate in the last elections, now a member of the PDP, talking to us about the economy and what needs to change. Well, I Beg to Differ comes up at the top of the hour. Yvonne Ohaifo, Femi Obong-Daniels coming up with the third place competition. Who's going to be champion? You'd need to watch to find out. My name is Maryann Okon. Follow me Twitter, Instagram, MIMIEYO. That's Mimi Ayo. Just search for me, Maryann Duke Okon. Anywhere, I'll pop up. I love you, Lagos. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
99.3 Nigeria Info. We are more than just radio. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at Nigeria Info FM. Check us out on Facebook at Nigeria Info 99.3. Follow us on Twitter at Nigeria Info FM and on Instagram at Nigeria Info FM Lagos for live updates as it happens. 99.3 Nigeria Info. Let's